So in Halo 3, there's an area that I have been trying to get to for 17 years, and I have no idea if it's possible because I've never seen anyone do it. So can I do it? Let's give it a shot! At the end of the mission Sierra 117, right at the beginning of Halo 3, you're tasked with saving Sergeant Johnson and fellow Marines who get captured by a brute chieftain. The setting for this prison cell is that of a dam. There's an entire mountain range with beautiful trees and greenery that's fully designed, but wasn't supposed to be accessible by players. Well, not even a week into Halo 3 being released, players figured out how to get out of this map. But they only figured out how to get out of one side. The side with the actual dam structure. At the basin of the dam and all the way across the canyon lies an area that is completely off limits. Even if you can get out of the map by normal means, there's still no way to get to this specific section because it's so off limits. And there's a couple glaring issues with trying to get to this section of the map. First, there's a barrier just above the water right outside of the dam that prevents you from getting to this area. Two, there's no way to actually traverse the terrain around it. It's too steep to get to. Third, and most importantly, there is nothing outside of the map to use as a tool to get to this area. In fact, there aren't any objects, period. So with all these barriers to completing this, how would I even start to pull this off? Well, I have to play the game out of order. To do this, I would need to get to the dam section of Sierra 117 early. And luckily for me, on this mission, there's a weird mechanic that enables you to get out of the map early. Okay, I was waiting for that dialogue. I'm having a second player stay behind, and then I'm going to join them. And I'm going to wait a few minutes, and after that, the Phantom should have drifted into the map. So if you activate Sergeant Johnson's voice prompt just before he's crossing the bridge where he eventually disappears and gets captured, you can head to an earlier section of the mission and wait. If everything works correctly, the Phantom will actually drift inside of the map and get stuck in one of the objects. From here, you can have a player ride this Phantom outside of the map and get to the next section early. But there's no way to actually check to see if the Phantom is drifting into the map correctly, and more times than not, this doesn't work. So after waiting in this section for roughly 5 minutes, I went back into the map to see if the Phantom was in a different location, and it wasn't. So I'd have to reset this and try again. So I waited another 5 minutes, went in, and looked. It didn't work, and the exact instant I went to revert to my previous checkpoint, I got a new checkpoint. So I decided I was not going to revert to the last checkpoint every time this failed. I would restart the mission, but from the rally point Bravo. Now, I've tried this before, and I found that reverting to your last checkpoint doesn't seem to work very often, if at all. I found that there's a much higher success rate if you restart the mission entirely from rally point Bravo. I almost think that you need to get a random seed for the mission start that determines whether or not the Phantom is actually going to drift, but I'm not entirely sure. Anyways, I set it up once more. And now I'll go back to see if the Phantom drifted far enough.
Hang tight, I'm coming.
Didn't drift at all. Okay, fourth time's a charm. I'm already half an hour into this and have not even started it successfully. After 40 minutes and 3 failed attempts, I was able to get this successfully on the 4th try. It actually drifted. But now that this Phantom was in here, I needed to clear out this area. I didn't just need this Phantom to get out of the map, I actually needed something much more crucial. Well, 2 things. So you're not actually scheduled to fight the Brute Chieftain until the later prison scene, but he's still a killable enemy while on the Phantom. I would need the Gravity Hammer and Invincibility that he's not supposed to drop until later. I'll get to why we need these 2 objects, but first, I need to focus on getting out of the map. After picking up the Gravity Hammer Invincibility and clearing out the enemies on the Phantom and around the Phantom, I jumped on the turret and had a second player grenade the outside of this Phantom. Throwing grenades at it helped it get unlodged from the rocks that it was stuck in. Once it gets unlodged, it's scripted to fly away, but because a player is in the Phantom, it hits the map barrier and stops. Now normally you would need 2 players to do this, 1 player to be on the turret and 1 player to be in the Phantom ready to get on the turret as another player's getting off. But a while ago, I actually found a way to do this with just 1 person. If you wait for the Phantom to drift long enough so that you're stuck several feet in this rock, you can get off and it will eject you into the Phantom and you're outside of the map. From here, you just need to run and jump from outside the entrance and land on a rock. Okay, so I basically have one shot to pull this off. I'm all the way in this rock. Now I'm just gonna get out and jump back. There we go. Boom. So now that I'm outside of the map, my next step is to load in the final section where the dam spawns. Okay, so I need to leave a second player in the map. It's extremely important that you have at least one other player stay in the map while another player gets out of the map. Now the player outside of the map needs to navigate to a section of the mission that overlaps with the final dam section. This is how we're going to play the mission out of order and get the tools that we normally wouldn't be able to get outside of the map. I took the player outside of the map all the way to the edge of the barrier, and then I had the second player that was in the map proceed through the cave where Johnson goes through to activate the load zone and load in the final section. So now the second player back there needs to move slightly forward through the mission. If this works correctly, I will now be in the final section of the map. Boom. Okay, so remember earlier when I said that we had to pick up a gravity hammer and invincibility? Well, I'm going to explain why right now. So there's really only one path that I can use to get to this restricted area, and that's straight across the canyon. I need to somehow go fast enough and high enough that I cover the entire distance of the dam, while also maintaining the height needed to not get sucked back into the map. And there's really only one way that I could think to do this: by using a Covenant space crate coupled with a gravity hammer. In Halo 3, you can go insanely fast speeds and cover great distances if you hit a Covenant space crate with a gravity hammer at the right angle. And luckily, there are 7 space crates at the dam section of the mission just on top. Ha, Bungie, 7. But the reason that I need to get them out early is because there's limited checkpoints at the end of the mission if you play it normally. You would also have to worry about getting the gravity hammer off of the Brute Chieftain, as well as him not activating his invincibility. I didn't want to have to deal with all of that, so that's why I got both of these tools early. And also, I needed the gravity hammer early to hit this Covenant space crate out of the map. But I wanted to hit several of these crates outside of the map just in case something went wrong later. Here's one. There's 2. So now that I had multiple crates outside of the map, I needed to navigate and grenade jump back to the beginning of the end section. Funnily enough, you can just go backwards through this end section early to trigger the cutscene that happens normally. And the mission doesn't even break. I'm going back to hit this load point. After you hit the checkpoint at the end of this cave area, you can just go to the balcony that would normally activate the Phantom and prison sequence. Boom. Okay, so now I need to get out of the map. So now that I had several space crates outside of the map, I myself needed to break the map barrier and get outside of the map. If you take this path along this concrete building, you'll eventually get to a small corner. From here, you can use 2 players to elevator jump all the way to the top of this structure. Okay, now I need to get out of the map again. Go get my setup. In Halo 3, there's a mechanic where if you have one player stand on another player's head, the bottom player, if they walk into a corner, can mash the jump button and it will elevator the other player on top of their head. Okay, so this player needs to elevator me. From this point, I need to have one player die while another player lines up against this specific rock. The way that we're going to get out of the map barrier is by breaking it with another player spawning outside of it. If you have one player line up at the perfect angle across this rock, eventually one player will spawn outside of the map. But this is pretty inconsistent and it could take a while. It took me 6 minutes and over 25 attempts to finally get a second player to spawn outside of the map. Now you can't see it very well here because I wasn't looking in the correct direction, but eventually that player did get outside of the map. And then I had a really unfortunate realization. How the hell was I going to get the gravity hammer and invincibility to use outside of the map if I was inside the map myself? And because I needed to die in order to break the map barrier, how was I going to transport these items? But I had one final idea. If I could throw 2 grenades at the same time, maybe I could hit my dead body far enough outside that it launches the weapons to the other player outside the map. Really? And then a random grenade on the ground beneath me exploded the first time I tried to do this, and I figured, well, I'm gonna have to reset all this stuff again. I should have left this hammer out there while I was out there. I'm so stupid. Ugh. Now, I'm not going to subject you guys to having to see the 8 separate times that I failed to get the Phantom after having my setup all jank. I'm not going to show you the hour and a half it took just to get the Phantom to come back into the map again. I wouldn't show you that! Oh, finally. It's back. With the Phantom back, I needed to repeat my steps from earlier. Bam! After getting outside of the map and landing on the rocky face, I headed over to one of the sections where the map overlaps. Then I died so that I would drop my gravity hammer and invincibility on this rock. Equipment and weapons in Halo 3 generally don't despawn. So now that I had my gravity hammer and weapons outside of the map, I needed to do something differently this time that I didn't do before. So before, I went into the map with my gravity hammer and my invincibility, and I hit the Covenant space crates out of the map early. Well, because I don't want to bring the gravity hammer and invincibility in the map again, I need to play through the final section and get a gravity hammer off the Brute Chieftain and hit these crates. But the thing is, you have a lot less opportunities because there's enemies constantly throwing grenades and swinging hammers at you, so you lose a bunch of space crates in the process. Well, luckily there's at least 2 checkpoints on the end section of this mission. I decided that because I had about half as many crates as I had before, I would need a checkpoint in order to get these out of the map. Okay, that should be good. Okay, the second player spawned outside the map. So, after an hour and 45 minutes from failing my previous attempt, I was outside of the map and finally ready to get this set up for my first attempt at this. And there, boom, I'm out of the map now. So now I need to go get my hammer and my invincibility. So now that I'm out of the map, I need to navigate to the spot where I died and dropped my gravity hammer and invincibility previously. We just need to hope that it's still there. It is all still here, yes. So with the gravity hammer and invincibility in tow, I needed to find one of my Covenant space crates to set it up for a launch. Oh, here's one in almost perfect position. So in Halo 3, the best way to get horizontal launch distance from a Covenant space crate is by having it oriented vertically, but tilted and leaned slightly against something. I had to find a spot that I could lean this crate at an appropriate angle that I could get the distance and trajectory to make it to the other side. But also, it's hard to vertically orient a crate, especially when the cliff faces are not flat at all. After about 15 minutes of going back and forth throwing grenades at these Covenant space crates and hitting them off the map, I finally got one of them in a good orientation. I found a spot where a grassy knoll meets a rock face that you can actually lean the Covenant space crate up against without tipping over. The angle of the space crate is steep enough so that realistically, I can probably get the trajectory to make it to the other side. I would just need to worry about the power. So, if you're smart, you might have noticed that I never actually explained why I need the invincibility. I didn't know if I was going to get the power needed to get across this giant canyon with just a gravity hammer and a space crate. So, the reason that I got the invincibility is that in the case that I don't have enough power, I can throw a plasma grenade at the crate and then gravity hammer. But this is all hypothetical. I need to worry about first getting a checkpoint so I can actually start attempting this. Wrong way. Nope. Could be good. Just short. After about 10 minutes of attempts, I could tell that I just wasn't going to get the distance needed with just the gravity hammer and nothing else. So I decided to switch it up and throw that plasma grenade. But doing so involves a very specific sequence of events that are needed in order to swing your hammer in time. You basically need to activate your invincibility the exact same instant that you're throwing a plasma grenade. Right after you do this, you have to jump and then swing your gravity hammer about eye level. The lower you're looking, the higher you go in the air. So the straighter you look, the straighter you go. Come on. Come on. No! There we go. Come on, I just gotta live. Ah. There we go. Come on. Hit it. I'm gonna die. Damn. Boom! Bam! Did the slingshot. Easy money. This is actually one of the hardest areas to get to in all the game, if you're not using acrophobia. Boom, got a nice checkpoint. Let's check it out. That's sick. Oh, you can see the whole river basin. Oh, what's happening? Good thing I have a checkpoint. You developers. It seems to me that there's a giant cliff here. Oh, seems I'm falling again. At this point, my objective changed entirely. I wanted to somehow see if it were possible to get to the bottom of this invisible cliff. I had to explore this area for you guys because I love you. Now, comment down below, like the video, make sure to share, subscribe, hit the bell notification. Whoa! Unexplored area alert? Oh, So immediately after getting to this unexplored area, I hit a death barrier, what seemed to be, at least, and died. I couldn't just leave it at that. I was down there for like 3 seconds. I had to get down again. Dude, I can't live this time. I need to get back to this area. Yeah, so somehow I accidentally made it on my second try, and then the next 35 minutes I spent failing this over and over and over again, questioning my sanity and whether or not it actually happened. At a certain point, I just decided maybe I'll just jump off another player's head and try to gravity hammer boost my way down there, but I found that this didn't seem to work either. I have no idea how I got so lucky, or what I was doing wrong even, but I analyzed the game film, went back, and made some adjustments. Found that I had to walk off this specific ledge, swing my hammer once, look down, swing my hammer again, and then back up so that I wasn't hitting the death barrier. Boom! And that's how you get down again. In this area, there happens to be geometry, but not texturing. So in order to find out where exactly I was going, I just had to walk. And you can roughly see the shape of the mountain that I'm going up, climbing up a mountain right now, by looking at the map as a reference point in the distance. But guys, I found out that you can just walk to this area from getting out of the map. Whoa. This all connects. You can walk up it. I didn't know that. We'll go quickly explore the Cave of 1,000 Faces. This is like Halo 3 101, so if you haven't seen this before, you're probably pretty new. We all knew about Cave of 1,000 Faces in 2007. Yeah. So really quickly, I just wanted to show you guys the Cave of 1,000 Faces. Now, it was called this back in the day because apparently you could just see 1,000 different faces in this cave. I don't know if I ever really saw that, but it is a cool cave that they never really utilized in the game. Why make a cave completely out of the map that you had no intention of showing users? I don't know, but it is cool. But basically, this is what it looks like, and there's not much more to it. But I still need to go check out the other side of the canyon that I haven't really explored that much. One of the biggest pieces of feedback that I get from my videos is that I don't spend enough time showing the cool areas, I just show how to do it. So, I'm gifting you with that today. So basically, my goal here was to find the exact edges of the boundaries that I could go. I wanted to see if I could somehow complete a loop all the way around this, but really my goal was just to explore this area some more. One thing that I love about Halo 3, and specifically Sierra 117, is that all of the objects are pretty much solid, including the trees, the rocks, and pretty much everything outside of the map. Bungie did a really great job of segmenting this map so that you wouldn't be able to get to this side. They even included invisible barriers well outside of the map that you wouldn't normally be able to reach. The furthest I could go around this side of the canyon was to the entrance where you come into the dam part. I don't think you can actually make it across unless you maybe have 3 or 4 players and somehow figure out a way. But I think a really unique and cool feature of this side of the canyon is that the geometry tells you that you should not be able to stand on it based on how steep the hill is. But you can walk on pretty much any surface on this side. I mean, seriously, look at this. There's no way that you should be able to stand on this surface. It's like 70-degree grade. See how deep these trees are rooted? Also a fun fact, the tree roots go well into the bottom of the map. Another fun little fact of the developers' dedication to developing the game fully. Anyways, I'm just rambling on, but here's the barrier I was talking about a little bit earlier, that invisible barrier they put in for I don't know what reason. But basically, this is the furthest you can go on this side of the map before you enter the overlook area that you come into originally. With that, there's just one final area to explore. The beach, my favorite area, just above the base of the damn canyon. There's a cool little cave area that's covered by shrubbery that you probably wouldn't ever notice is a cave because you can't get close enough to see that. You know, 343 should add an option in Halo 3 where you can disable seeing any indication of another player on a map, and then we will have a worldwide hide-and-seek tournament that I will inevitably win. I will not accept any monetary prize, I just want control of the Halo franchise. I will focus all my efforts on developing Halo 3 Anniversary and wiping any reference to anything that happened after Halo Reach.